For the first time in a long time, I've just caught up with Simon Hill, but it's a Simon Hill that you've never seen before. The voice of the game we all know, but my goodness me, this face I've never quite seen. Simon Hill, welcome to The Informer.
Good to see you, George. How are you, mate?
Wow, that's the most impressive growth. Okay, how many weeks is this?
Well, I think this, I've never really been clean shaven, to be honest, but I think this started in earnest once the lockdown began. And I've always wanted to have the full Ned Kelly or Miller Jedinak style beard. So I thought now was as good a time as any. So I went for it, and I'm still going. So I'm hoping to go the full ZZ Top by the time I'm done.
Well, let me tell you, Jedinak is a great look. The Ned Kelly you can forget. But what are you making of this outstanding announcement over the last few days that FIFA has seen fit and to give the 2023 Women's World Cup to Australia and New Zealand?
Oh, it's fantastic for us. Obviously, we're a country that doesn't have football as its number one sport in terms of viewership and interest, and we're also a sport that is desperately in need of a bit of a boost and a bit of attention put on it, because we need investment in facilities and infrastructure and all the rest of it. So, and not least because it's a great sporting event to host on our shores with the best of women's football around the world coming to Australia and New Zealand in 3 years' time. So, look, it's a fantastic piece of news. It's the first bit in the jigsaw, I think, of the reboot of the game, which we desperately need. And caps off, a good week for James Johnson after he managed to, secure an extension to the TV deal for another year. So, we're starting to make a little bit of progress. There's a lot to do. We know that. But I think we've got the right man at the helm in James Johnson. It's just whether, all the stakeholders can fully align behind him. And as we know, the history of football in Australia, you know better than I do, George. You've been here all your life. That is sometimes easier said than done. But we keep trying, we keep plugging away, and hopefully we'll get there.
Well, the game will be restarting, we hear, 20-odd games or 27 games in 28 days or something. Who will you be calling the action for?
Well, at the moment, nobody. Obviously, as people will be aware, I left Fox Sports last week. So at the moment, I'm unemployed. So if anybody wants to give me a job, then I'm all ears. But look, I've started talking to a couple of people. There's nothing concrete yet. Obviously, I'll keep that pretty close to my chest, because that wouldn't be fair to those involved. But
correct.
I hope it's not going to be too long that I'm out of the game, and I hope I've still got a fair bit more to give. I've had some lovely messages from people, which I thank them from the bottom of my heart. It's nice to receive those messages at what's been a pretty difficult time. So I do thank people for that, and hopefully I won't be away for too long. But you never know in this game, George.
I can agree with you there, but I also remember you only signed for a 3-year deal when you first stepped away from Britain and came down under to cover the game, and you fulfilled that that contract. How many years did you do all up at Fox?
I did 14 years at Fox,
wow.
Just I think 1 month shy of 14 years. And 3 before that at SBS. So
yeah.
I've been in Australia for 17 years, and look, as I've said in 1 or 2 other interviews over the last couple of days, even if I was never to work another day in football again, either in this country or anywhere else, I've had a fantastic run. Some great experiences, covered some of the biggest tournaments in the world, grand finals, derby matches, big blues, Asian Cups, African Cups of Nations, European Championships, FA Cup finals, English Premier League, European games. I mean, for a working class lad from Manchester, I've done so much more than I ever dreamed was possible. I hope that the dream is not yet over. I'm a bit too young to retire, but if it was to end, then I'd have no complaints. But I'm not planning on that. I'm planning on being back, and don't worry, I'll be more outspoken than ever.
Well, I can only hope that that happens sooner rather than later. I've been a big fan. I think if you look at your CV and you listen to a collage or a montage of your commentary, you've given us some of the brightest and most engaging calls and most exciting calls in the history of the game, which is super exciting. You've been, for me, you've been the soundtrack of the game for the better part of the last 17 years, and that's made it very, very special. There have been some outstanding games that you've called, and I can remember when Timmy Cahill got excited in a place called Japan and opened up people's eyes to his talent and his abilities. You reminded everyone with every goal that was notched just how important it was and what it meant to Australians and to the young man himself. It's been a great journey for you, but can I just ask you a question? This COVID-19 pandemic has created enormous turmoil around the world. We saw so many of the great world leagues come to or had to be suspended. And we saw Manchester City, your club, your not only your alma mater, but the club that you have enormous faith and support for, do something it hasn't done in ages, and that is slip, stumble and fall and allow Liverpool to run past. How did that make you feel?
Well, again, look, in football, you can't always be too greedy, and we won the last two championships. Obviously, we'd have liked to have won this year, but again, you know, I'm old enough, and you're old enough, George, to remember the days when City were not only in the second division, but even for a season in the third division. And I went to a lot of the games that year, home and away, and it was only 21 years ago now, that I was at York City watching City lose 2-1 in the third division, and we were 12th in League Two, as it then was, after that particular result. Now, if you'd have told me 21 years later, City would go to Real Madrid in the Champions League and win at the Bernabeu, I think I'd have asked you to carry me away in a white coat and a straitjacket. So, you know, the great thing about football is that nothing stays the same. Okay, we've not won the Premier League this year, but you know, for many, many years of my City supporting life, I didn't think I'd ever see us win a single trophy, not even the League Cup. So the fact that we've won 3 Premierships, 2 FA Cups, 4 League Cups, been to the semi-finals of the Champions League, and I think, you know, one day we'll probably win the Champions League. That's more than I could ever have dreamed of. So I'm not bitter, and this year Liverpool have been by far the best team. They're a terrific side to watch, brilliantly coached by Jurgen Klopp. I don't say I like all their supporters, but to watch as a team, they're fantastic, and they fully deserve the title of Premier League champions because they've deserved it.
Simon Hill, thank you very much for your support, and more importantly, thank you for giving us an opportunity to cover some territory. Hurry back to the television screens, and if not on the screens, at least behind the scenes, to allow us to once again hear that voice of the game. I have one question before I let you go. Who is going to win this year's FA Cup?
Well, it's going to be City, isn't it? Obviously. We just got to dispose of Arsenal in the semi-finals, and maybe we'll get a Manchester derby in the final. That would be quite nice, even if it was probably going to be behind closed doors. But yeah, I'd like to see that. Think that City could lift the FA Cup. You know, we've already won the League Cup and the Charity Shield this year. I think people are forgetting that, you know, when the Champions League resumes in August, City could still win 3, or if you include the Community Shield, 4 trophies this year. So it's not exactly a disastrous season if we were to win all that lot. But we'll see. We're in the last 4 of the FA Cup, so I'm hoping we're going to retain the trophy. Come on, City.
Good on you, Simon. Thank you so much.
Cheers, George.